Wuthering Waves could be launching way sooner than you think, and I actually think that's a good thing. Now, some of you who've been following the channel for a little while know that I've talked about during my closed beta test 2 experience that I thought Wuthering Waves needed a little more time. I thought there was no way it was going to be launching anytime before June, that it needed some months to cook, that they still needed to polish a few elements for it, and so I would be surprised if it was going to be announced sooner than that. Well, it seems like I might have to eat my words a little bit. And I think I'm gonna have to hand out an I told you so, giving the credit to somebody else who gets to tell me I told you so. Because I didn't totally agree at first, but I think they might be right. And I'm not excited to have to do that, but I want to be honest on this channel. I want to be honest here on the takes. And so we're going to talk a little bit about it. But first, let's talk about why it looks like it could be coming sooner than expected and why I think that's actually a positive thing. So in case you didn't know, a while back at one of the conferences, I think it might have been the Taipei Game Show, I'm not 100% sure, but one of them did announce that the Epic Games Store was going to be hosting Wuthering Waves and that they were partnering with Epic Games to get it on their store, which is a great thing. I'm always very supportive of games being on more and more platforms, that they're more available to players. This is all around a positive thing. However, this might have had some unforeseen consequences, some of which that I don't think Kuro Games is going to be very excited about. But they definitely already know at this point because, well, it seems like everybody else does too. When they created the store page for Wuthering Waves that is now available, they uploaded some back-end information on when the game was going to be published. This information was then scraped through the Google services, and then when you looked up Wuthering Waves on the Epic Games Store, it actually posted the initial release date as May 30th, 2024. Now, quick disclaimer to Kuro Games here if you happen to come across this, because I want to try and play fair here. If you consider this a leak and this is a problem, let me know. I'll take this video down, okay? I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes here. But this isn't data mined. This is just Epic Games doing a little bit of a whoopsie, so I'm hoping there's a little bit of grace here. But if it's a problem, hey, just let me know. But continuing on the content here, it looks like we are looking at a May 30th release date, which is earlier than even my earliest prediction of being sometime in June. To recap some of the feedback why I thought it needed more time, I thought it still needed a little bit of text rework. There was a lot of text flow issues that came up during a lot of the side quests. I think some of the elements of the combat needed to be worked in terms of some of the emphasis, you know, the impact frames and different things to make the combat feel a little bit more chunky. There was a little bit of polishing that I thought was needed that I figured they would need a little more time to work through that. But I think I was wrong. And I'm okay with saying that I'm wrong. I'm not too prideful about that. So let's talk about the I told you so. If in case you didn't know, I do a Wuthering Waves podcast with a few content creator friends of mine. It's called The Rovercast. You can go and subscribe to that on YouTube. But on that podcast and outside of it, there's a friend of mine named Life Lessons. He's part of the podcast, and he's been talking a lot about how the build that we've been playing on CBT2 is actually a much older build than is what even is being played on CN. And when I first heard that information, that I figured that might be the case, but it's still probably needed a little bit more time than that. I was a little bit dismissive of the point and figured they would probably still need a little more time to cook. However, then there was more information that came out. And on the episode of the podcast where we had Vulcan and Legions on with us, Vulcan brought something to my attention. I didn't know that actually they were allowing spending on the CN servers, which based on his experience usually means they're much closer to release than we expect. Part of the way that it works when you allow spending in on the beta servers is there is a rebate that gets given back to you on the full release of the game, and usually it's multiplied in some kind of way. Just for the sake of example, you spend $10 on the beta server, you get 15 on launch. That's the general principle behind it. And usually if a gaming company is going to allow that kind of spending to happen on their game, it means they're very close and very confident in their product to get to that point. And usually the game releases a few months after that. And after learning that information, I thought there was way more credibility put behind that idea that it could actually release soon. Well, it seems like Life was right, and the new information provided by Vulcan was also correct, because as I said, this date of the May 30th, 2024. And why did I go through this whole process? Why did I go through this explaining why this is all coming to be the case? Because it's to give some legitimacy. At the end of the day, this has not been 100% confirmed by Kuro Games, but I think taking all the factors into consideration, I think the May 30th release date is probably a very accurate date, to put it lightly. And while again, we'll wait for full confirmation confirmation from Kuro Games on that. I'm thinking it's very likely that that's to be the case on the release date. But the whole point of the video, why is this a positive thing? Because the momentum of Wuthering Waves and its release date is really important for right now. Wuthering Waves had a great influx and peak of interest during the initial couple weeks of the closed beta test 2, where a lot of people wanted to come and see, is this game going to hold up and have the expectations that a lot of us are hoping for? And a lot of the player base seemed to get that. And the vast majority of the player base and a lot of content creators do think Wuthering Waves is actually a very good game with a lot of great potential, and it just needs a little bit of polishing, but it is going to be a strong contender. But that's right now. That interest and that momentum is happening right now, and that could change in the coming months. We all know that Wuthering Waves is going to be a competitor to Genshin Impact, and Genshin Impact is getting closer and closer to their next 0.0 update, which is usually very big and is going to have an influx of player and take a lot of time and attention. There are other gacha games too that are currently being cooked that could have an opportunity to at least disrupt the release of Wuthering Waves. So time really is of the essence right now, in my opinion, for them to continue to have a good launch. I think also understanding that the build that is currently being worked on is not the same one that we've had in closed beta test 2, and that a lot of the work that I've previously mentioned has already been worked on. I think it's giving me a lot more confidence and belief in the game in and of itself. Now, I still stand by some of the criticism I gave in one of my previous Wuthering Waves videos, talking about the ecosystem, talking about the degrees of RNG that are incorporated into the ecosystem, and I do still have some concerns about that if they leave it fully as is without any opportunity to incorporate some kind of substat selectors like you had with PGR. But I think even despite that point, I think despite that big concern that I have, I think the game itself is looking super promising, and it's one that I really want to get to the point where I feel like I can confidently put my time in and grind into it. I've slowed down a lot on the closed beta test 2 because the currency income has been slower than anticipated in terms of testing purposes, and I don't want to put hours and hours and hours into a game that I'm about to lose all of my information and account progress for. I can't. I'm having a hard time finding motivation to do that. Sorry guys, I really wanted to play Yinling, but it's going to take me hours at this point to try and get enough currency to actually be able to pull her on her banner, and I'd rather just save some of that energy for the release, especially if this date proves to be true. I plan on going super hard on Wuthering Waves when it does actually have its full release. I will be doing a lot of content on this game and a lot of streaming at that time, and I want to have the energy and excitement of a new game when I go in and do that. I don't want to burn myself out on a beta that I'm about to lose all of my progress on, and I don't want to necessarily create one image of a beta test in my head when actuality the final release of the game is going to be much better than that. But that's my thoughts on the current state of Wuthering Waves and the new information that's dropped. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you actually think this is positive news, or is this a concern for you? Is this a red flag that it's maybe coming sooner than anticipated, or do you think with the new information that actually it's something to look forward to? I'd be interested to know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate you and your time and always checking out the channel. Quick shout out to the patrons who support me here on the channel. You help enable me to do what I do, and if you want to join the list of patrons who get shouted out on this channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.